Matthew, you are muted.
Oh, apologies. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, eclectic language is business. That's who we are. In my opinion, language is not only about describing how we see things, but rather a method of understanding. And that's what we're going to delve into today, ladies and gentlemen. Please keep those mics muted at the moment. Okay. And we're going to go into it. I'm going to present the program. Many have joined. That is awesome. I'd like you to share your experiences with me today. Okay. I will try to share my experiences with you. Of course, you're entitled to your own opinion. Okay, these are just my subjective opinions on the topic of cultural differences, impact on communication, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to be the first point on the list. We're going to go also into challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis when it comes to cross-cultural situations. Okay, we're going to describe a variety of cultures. You can tell me about your culture or company culture even, or perhaps the variety of countries that your coworkers come from. Okay, we're also going to go into English phrases that are commonly misunderstood. Okay, and we'll describe active listening and how we can use that. How can we can use it to get your, I would say, message across in a non-violent manner. Okay, it's not only about hearing physically, right, but actually active listening. And at the very end, the self-reflection moment, I'll ask you some questions, but feel free to write in that chat box throughout the webinar, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. If you have any questions, you can unmute that mic, ask me, no problem whatsoever. All right, let's get the show on the road. Are you ready? Oh, good. That's it. Let's get into it. So, ladies and gentlemen, first, I'm going to just ask everyone a question. I know that over 30 people are here. So, how would you describe your communication style? Are you rather emotional, like I am, or direct, competitive? Are you factual, indirect, or perhaps cooperative? There's no wrong answer here. You can tell me, or you can write in that chat box over the video feed. In my case, it's over the video feed, right? Cooperative, okay. Factual, okay. So variety, as you can see already, the first three answers are completely different. Emotional, okay. All right, so Petra's like me, emotional, yeah? Okay, Paulina, emotional. Philip, cooperative. Now, let's put it this way. Let's imagine that we're gonna be working together on a project and our communication styles are different. As you can see, they are. How could that impact the style of the project, the way, the methods that we're going to take? There's something I like to talk about. Mateusz says depends, emotional, cooperative. Okay, all right. So we're gonna go into a very basic, in my opinion, well, representation of low context and high context cultures. I'm gonna tell you a little story, okay, about myself. When I was growing up, okay, I grew up in the United States, and I was taught that everyone is equal. Absolutely, everyone is equal. Okay, and I agree with that. However, I believe that we don't work in the same ways in terms of like culture. Here, on this chart, you could, well, on this, I wouldn't say call it chart, but on this representation, visual representation, you can see low context cultures, high context cultures. And even if you Google this concept, you might come up with something like this, very basic. However, I researched this topic a bit further, and also I want to tell you about my personal experiences as well. Okay. So, first of all, here, if you look at the low context, we have American, English, Canadian, German. On the low context spectrum, I would say that the culture is very direct. Okay, very direct. Messages are short, for instance. Okay, the emails also extremely short. We function more on a, I would say, project basis and not on a relationship basis. Okay, and here the high context, Japanese or Chinese. I could tell you. Okay, some of you might have already heard that story if you've been working on me with some writing, for example. The longest email I've ever received in my life was from someone from the high context, I would say, part here. Yeah. So for instance, I received a email. It was from a Chinese student in that case, extremely long. Okay. A few pages long, actually. And it was all just to ask me a very simple question. Okay. Well, this showed me, right, that it's not the case that we are equal in terms of the way that we communicate. On the low context part of it, I would say the message is extremely short, usually. If you're like me, perhaps you don't have that much time to write extremely long emails, and that's okay. Everyone's used to it. If you look at, for instance, the high context culture, we might be seen, if you're like me and you write very short, for example, emails, as someone who's perhaps distant, maybe untrustworthy. Why? Where's the relationship? Because in high context cultures, it's all about relationship. Okay. And here it's project based. Okay. So that's something. If you'd like to share about your own culture, tell us about it. You can write in the chat box, or you can tell me. Perhaps you disagree with me. I'm open. I'd like to hear you out. Yeah. So it's not all only about like my idea here. If you have any experiences, I will share my experiences with the types of coaches I dealt with or had had the opportunity to cooperate with. Okay. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, if we go into something called perceptual filters now, I think that today I would like to develop something, I would say, better, even better than that graph before. We can work on it together, right? Yeah. So yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, just please keep those mics muted at the moment, okay? Because I think, unless you'd like to tell me something, okay? Because I can hear someone. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, we can work on this together. I feel that we have something called like a perceptual filter, and aspects such as community, experience, our culture, which we mentioned, values also play a huge role, a huge part. Okay. What other aspect do you think plays a part here? You can write in the chat box. I'd like to hear your ideas or see your ideas. Okay. In the meantime, while you think about that, I'd like to add something from my end. Okay. While looking at this very basic, as I said, perception of low context, high context culture, American and English is here, but it's not completely true, because I had meetings. I'll give an example. I had meetings both in the States, for instance, or with my American colleagues and British colleagues. I also lived in England for quite many years, and the meetings were also completely different, right? In England, extremely long, not very to the point, and perhaps without any decision being made. In American meetings, extremely short. Okay. All right. I have some ideas on the board. I mean, in the chat box. Generation. Okay. Position. Religion. Okay. Stereotypes. I like these. Okay. I'm going to just take one step back. Just pressed it. Okay. All right. Good stuff here. All right. Continue adding some ideas. We'll put those on the board in a moment. And I'm also going to talk to you about something else. Because like I said, if you Google like cultures, like I said, it's so general that I believe it doesn't mean that, like, let me just take a step back quickly to that. All right. So if we have, like, for example, Mexican, okay, they're from Mexico, they're high context, this is the way I should communicate. No, in my opinion, it's just so that you get the general context of the culture, and then you can get to know the individual. It can help you get to know the individual. Okay, that's my opinion here. Okay, but I thought about the variety of cultures and I thought about values. Okay, so, and I thought about 4 types. So we have traditional values, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, something called secular values. Okay, so secular rational. Okay, secular rational. We have self-expression, and we have survival. I'll put it this way, like in Poland, for instance, okay, I'd say Poland, in my opinion, at the moment is probably around in the middle, right, of low context and high context. However, I feel that it's changing. It's constantly changing. Here, I wrote down a few more aspects. Let me try to explain that in more detail. Okay, so traditional values in a country, like family-based, family. It could be down to religion, for instance. Secular rational is the opposite of traditional. Okay, self-expression. We can talk about environment or equality. Okay, and survival. Now this one is like on the other end. It's like when a country, for instance, has some, for example, problems in terms of like warfare or things like this. It's hard for a country who has problems like that to think about self-expression, right? So if there's some sort of conflict going on, but I thought about these values, and I think that this is also a huge factor, because, for instance, and they're changing all the time. If you think about Poland, for instance, and you compare Poland like in the 90s and where Poland is now, right? It's a completely different place. Now we're starting to talk about more of the self-expression, for instance. In the States, did you know that States, I would say, used to be like a traditional value sort of conformist type of country? Now it's also, there's like a change there, in my opinion, right? Okay. Oh, of course. Yeah, the question by Ilona. Yes, good question. Very good question. Why is English seen as a low context? Very, very good question. I'll take a step back and clarify that once more. Okay. In the low context culture, okay, the message is very direct, very direct. So let's imagine I'm going to write, if we collaborated on a project together, for instance, the message would be project-based, short, to the point. In that email that I told you about, like the high context culture, my student told me their life story, honestly, and well, bless them, but and I appreciated that, but it was the longest email I've ever read in my life, and it was all down to a question about like my schedule, for example, right? So in a low context culture, the email would be, hello, I hope this email finds you well. Can you tell me your schedule? In the high context, it might be developing the relationship. So it's relationship based. I can tell you one story about this. This will be one that will help you differentiate. Okay, before we go on. A few years back, I was teaching students from Brazil, and they were collaborating with an American company. Okay, so basically the CEO, the boss was American. Okay, and the collaboration just recently started, and everything was on the right path. They met, they set deadlines for the first project, and everything was happy. Everything was sound. The American CEO said something along the lines: if you have any questions during creating this content, this project, please let us know. Okay, there was a deadline set, and everything seems sound. And do you know what happened? Can anyone guess? There was no communication from the Brazilian team until the deadline. There was actually a moment where there was a meeting, and then it turned out that they won't be able to meet the deadline. Okay, so this is also like I would say a miscommunication. We'll talk about how this was solved in a moment. We're going to go back. If anyone has any more questions, please do ask. Okay. All right. Okay, so let me have a quick look at the answers here. Language, of course. History, definitely. Stereotypes, gotta be. Okay. Religion, it's a big one, to be honest. Like here, I said secular rational. That's, you know, that's a culture which doesn't really put pressure on religion, and then traditional, it does. So even in like the American Pledge of Allegiance, they talk about, religion. Okay, we're going to carry on. Any questions, by the way? You can ask. you know. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue. Some good stuff so far here, yeah. The good ideas that you have. All right. So, what challenges can we face in cross-cultural situations, ladies and gentlemen? This is a question for everyone, and I gave you some examples here. Style of communication. I mentioned that story, right? So it was also when it comes to the style of communication and deadlines. You know, deadlines are more flexible in the high context culture. Everything is relationship based, right? So of course, I'm generalizing. Of course, so yeah. So if you're wondering, it's still a generalization, okay? Because when I uh, like when we talked about equality, these were things that were very important to me, right? But when I met like colleagues who aren't like Chinese American or African American, but actually from a different country and living in that country, it turns out that we just work in different ways. Okay. All right. Any ideas? What challenges can we face in a cross-cultural situation, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, we have 37 contestants. Yeah. Okay. If you have any idea, you can speak to me, by the way. You can tell me if anything comes to mind. I'll give you some hints here, okay? I'll give you more hints. Okay. Okay, Ilona asks, are we considering English type of communication as a British one? British style of communication is definitely a high context culture. Well, I think I'm not gonna disagree with you here completely, because British English and American English, they're just different. They are different. And today I even prepared some phrases, right? I think that element of sarcasm, for example, that the British tend to use, for instance, you can say it's a typical high context trait. For instance, high context traits include, ladies and gentlemen, like body language, right? For instance, looking at silence. Yeah, are you able to distinguish what silence means when someone just keeps silent in the low context, like in the Swiss German? Your message is the message. It's a direct. But yet again, we're still generalizing, yeah, because then we go into the more granular level, the more individual level, right? Okay. American is low context and informal. Low context, highly formal. I'm going to agree that it is highly formal. It is. I remember a few years back when I was living in England. At the moment, I'm in Poland. A few years back, I remember, for instance, some ground rules that certain companies, British companies, make, like don't write mate to your colleague in an email, for example. Yeah. So this is the type of ground rules. Yeah. For instance, expectations. Definitely different expectations. If you have any examples that you can tell me about, please let me know. Okay. But ladies and gentlemen, so here, low context, high context communication, we I talked about like the basics. We're talking about basics. If you can go into the more granular level by looking into what I mentioned, like the cultural aspect of like values. There's actually there's some material about that I can recommend with. We're not going to go that deep today into it, since I also want to look at functional phrases in a moment. Okay. Direct feedback, negative feedback versus indirect negative feedback. So in the high context part of it, right, culture, the feedback, the negative feedback is often in between the lines. It might not be straightforward, but on the low context, rather, you will learn about what you have done wrong. And also something that I thought about here is the trust, yeah, which we talked about, task-based compared to relationship-based. That's why, like in negotiations, you build that rapport, that relationship. Today, if you can think of any specific examples, maybe of your culture or something that you had like experienced, please let me know. Okay, I'm going to gladly have a conversation with you about it. Okay. What else? Okay, so linear time, flexible time. This is about that story that I told you. Okay, with American and Brazilian. Although Brazilian is seen as like close to the last when it comes to high context, low on that scale apparently. Okay, and think about confrontation. We're going to talk about phrases, and what someone mentioned here in the chat, what Ilona mentioned, phrases that aren't so straightforward in English. And the phrases I'll be using today are actually the more common in British English. So that's what we're going to go into. Okay, let's get into it. Direct negative, already done. So here are some phrases. All right. The first one that I thought of is as follows. Perhaps you could give this some more thought. Okay. It does sound like it's a good idea. Keep developing it. But actually, it simply means don't do it. It's a lousy idea. It's a bad idea. So a phrase like such as perhaps you could give this some more thought. It's a question. It's not a direct, I would say it's not very direct, is it? So in this case, I completely agree that a phrase like this, quite surprising. It means something completely different than you might expect. Okay. If you have any idea, if you have any examples such as these that you'd like to share, a phrase that you heard of, or it could be even in your mother tongue, right? You can share that in the chat box. I'd love to find out if you have any, in your repertoire. Okay. And the next one that I prepared, here we go. One sec. Oh, the comment, with all due respect. Okay. It sounds like they respect you. They're listening. In reality, they think you're wrong. Okay. So there's a huge probability, very high probability, that after this phrase, you're going to get a negative, some sort of negative clause. Okay. Okay, here we go now. Okay. Could you consider some other options? Now, this one is not so easy, I think, to understand from the perspective of someone who's not a native speaker and didn't really know about this. It does sound like the decision has not been made, but actually, they just think your idea is pretty bad. It's not good. Could you consider some other options? Perhaps. So also another phrase which isn't very direct. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Now here, I noted this phrase, but I gave it some thought. It's very, very basic, right? But it does depend on your tone. It does depend on your delivery of this phrase as well. Sounds like they're impressed, but actually, they don't like it. Okay, so that's English for you, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, it's a global language, right? But we need to remember the majority of people speaking the language are not native speakers, so it's developing, constantly. Okay, I hear what you're saying. They agree with me. Yes. No, they actually disagree. Okay, so that's another one for you. Okay. Okay, I'm still waiting on some feedback or some recommendations from you. If you can think of a phrase like that you recently heard of, let us know. Okay. Alrighty then. Let's go on to the next one. I'm sure it's my fault. Okay, it's the fault of that speaker. They're admitting it. Typical British phrase that actually means that they think you're at fault. So this one, not very straightforward either. Okay. Has anyone ever heard this one being used in like a business context? I have, to be honest. And I think that actually it was a cause of a small little misunderstanding as well. So unfortunately, this one is not so clear either. Okay. We're going to continue. Not bad. Something is not so good. No, it's actually really good. Bad is the new good. Actually, in American slang, the word bad means good. So, that's bad. That means good, actually. So, like in modern or contemporary slang, if someone says, like, for instance, this video game is bad, in this type of like intonation, right? It means it's good. It's pretty good. It's actually really good. So bad is the new good. And good, quite good, is the new bad. So it's quite good. It's quite good. This one depends, honestly, on like as well, on the context as well. But it's quite good. It's quite good. If it's an email, could be hard to tell. Generally, it shows that there is um, some degree of disappointment. Could be better. Could be better. It's quite good. Right. Generally, like in English, if you think about like the scale, like if I draw a scale, for instance, of something being great, not so great, and if I put the word mediocre in the middle, but mediocre is actually means not so good. So these words, I strongly recommend actually practicing these with your tutors as well. Okay, and some of you actually have lessons with me. I can see. Thank you for being here. Yeah, and we can talk about that in the lessons. We can practice that. Okay, we're gonna go on. All right. Okay, I hope you're finding this interesting. By the way, at the very end of today, we're going to talk about a competition. So maybe worth wait. I guess I hope you stay out with us to the very end. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about some very, very general tips, but I'd like to talk about them and give you some examples. So the goal, I mentioned active listening. How can we actually do it? These are my tips. Okay, so feel free to give me some of your own ideas. Okay, I remember them. Right. Okay. Thank you, Barbara. Okay. So yeah, practice active listening. Can you hear that? Do you want to hear that? No, probably not. Yeah. So we're talking about not physically hearing, but actively listening. I told you about the cultural aspect, but it might be worth finding out more. So this is very general. Like I wasn't in the past, I wasn't a huge fan of like a graph and it was like, this is like, low context, high context, the end, and bye. It doesn't really work that way. It's that's the very basic of it, but then go into the deeper level. Think about some context. I'll give you a little story. We're talking about communicating clearly, seeking common ground, celebrating diversity, ladies and gentlemen, cultivating empathy. I think that it's great when the team is diverse. I'll tell you a little funny story, which happened many years ago, and it was one of my first lessons with someone from Asia, and it was online. Something I didn't know about beforehand. The student was from China. Okay, elderly gentleman. The guy is very friendly, like a businessman, but we went into like small talk. It was very fun. But what surprised me at the very beginning, the man said, my name's like, I don't remember the exact name. So let's imagine that the name is like Zheng, for example. But my English name is Tiger. Okay. All right. That sounds interesting to me. Maybe I can have an English name. I mean, my name doesn't really sound English. And it's actually one of the things that, during like school years, the teachers never knew how to say my name. When I was a substitute teacher, they never knew how to say my name. Maybe I can have an English name, I thought. But anyway, and this happened once, and then I had more students from China, dozens, and then hundreds. And then I realized that almost every single one had an English name. It's these kind of small things. For me, I want that diversity. I want to learn firsthand. This is something that you might not read about on Google, but if you experience it firsthand, it's just way more interesting, right? That way. So when I found out that some of the companies that like we teach at Eclectica right now have, are collaborating with companies from other countries, that made me so happy. Perhaps you're collaborating with people from other countries now. Maybe even it's your first time, and I'd like to know about your experiences here. Celebrate that diversity, even if something just seems off at the beginning. It's just different. It's common. You will find common ground. We're people at the end of the day. That's the way I see it. Okay, clearly communication should be clear. So today I told you some very basic like rules about like I would say the different cultures, and we talked about, I even went into some like details. But now I'm going to talk about functional phrases. This works regardless of who you're talking to. Okay, so it doesn't matter here whether you're talking with someone from country A or B. There's no difference here. Last point, cultivate empathy, ladies and gentlemen. Something that I also maybe not learned, but it's really important for me. I had like numerous lessons, in which I had a group. For instance, someone's from Italy, someone's from China, and then someone's from, for example, you name it, the country, and perhaps they're from there. Hello, thank you, Paulina. And think about it this way. A lot of the times, and this happened once, twice, dozens of times, hundreds of times, that person from a certain country, for instance, tended to dominate the conversation. For instance, this is when I thought about those, the high context, low context thing. Perhaps it's not so general. Perhaps there's truth in that. That's when I first realized I should do more research about it. So for instance, in a group with like someone from Italy and then someone from China, more often than not, the person from Italy will dominate. And the person, for example, from this this high context, very high context culture might stay silent, but they would like to talk. Cultivate that empathy, give them that chance. Think about this person. Imagine you're the one that's silent. You don't understand why is this person dominating me. Maybe this is not the right environment for me to say something, right? This is something that I gave a lot of deep thought into over the years, actually. And I think from the outcome that people enjoyed this, they liked it. People want to speak, trust me. If they're in a meeting, they're there, for example, to express their ideas. It's not forced. They want to speak. That's the bottom line, in my opinion. Okay. And then I can try to encourage them, right? So just think about it that way. If you're working on a project, regardless of what it is, of course, I'm looking at it from the perspective of a teacher, but it doesn't matter what field you work in. Just think about the differences as well. Okay, we're going to carry on. We're going to have a look at some phrases. Have you seen these before? Like, pardon me, come again? Yeah. Let me tell you something. These seem like very basic, but trust me, as well, a very common case that you might just hear the word what. Now, I hate the word what. Okay, and I don't why. This reminds me of another meeting, interesting meeting, where this is also about that perceptual filter that I told you about. The way that I understand it may not be the same way that you understand it, may not be the same way as someone else understands it. So I was in the meeting and I was speaking to a group of students from Saudi Arabia, an Arabic country. And at one point, someone simply shouts at me, saying the word what? And at first, I thought this person is a little bit aggressive. But it's another one of those stories, yeah, where that what was used more than once by more than one person, numerous occasions. This also probably something that you won't read about on Google, but I'm telling you about firsthand. That just happens. And that person who said that what to me later on went on to be like a fantastic student, worked with me for a really long time. And it was just a cultural thing. That's the way they communicate in their language, and that's it. End of story. But I highly recommend, I learned the hard way. Okay. So did he, I think. I was just taken aback a bit. Use phrases, the common ones. If you don't understand, if you'd like someone to repeat, let it be known. And that's the end of story, to be honest. Okay. Any questions? No. Okay. I know that some of you know me quite well. I see that. Thank you for being here, by the way. I really appreciate your time. So some of you might know some of my stories. There's only one life that I had, right? What can I say? Thanks, Philip. Okay, good. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, asking for clarification. Yeah. What do you mean by that? Okay. It's so good to clarify, right? If you think about that story, just think about that story that I told you with the deadlines, right? Someone might just say, fine, and then it's not fine. Or it might be the other way around. Perhaps you'll get hundreds of questions as well. Maybe it's a cultural thing. Perhaps it's just the individual thing. Because, like I said before, I was generalizing. Then you can go into the individual level, right? You get to know the individual at the end of the day. That's what it's all about, I believe. Okay. When you say, do you mean, and give me the exact phrase, put it in context. The classics, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to receive handouts from my colleague. Thank you so much. After this webinar, with some phrases as well. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna go on. Okay, plenty to cover. Okay, and not so much time. Open-ended questions. All right, it's another big one. Question words in English include the WH plus how, and you can also use words like tell me about. I strongly recommend using indirect questions as well. So it can change the whole storyline of your relationship with someone. Like I did say earlier, the majority of English speakers are not native. Okay, so the language is changing. Nonetheless, these norms, I think they apply. So, for instance, instead of saying, for example, why were you late? Okay, or for example, why did you do that? You can say, can you tell me why? Start with a phrase. Can you tell me why? Could you tell me why? It's a basic thing, but it really does its job, I think. Okay. All right. Oh yeah, that's the one. Patricia, thank you. Okay. How do you think we could improve it? Open-ended questions. So much better than the yes and no questions, right? More options. It's like an RPG game. Do you like RPGs? You have many different scenarios. Okay, we're gonna go on. Okay, because I want to go into something called giraffe and jackal language. This, when it comes to nonviolent communication, is one of also the core concepts. It was developed, really long time ago as well. But I believe that it's so universal. It's something that I want to talk to you about. Also, phrases. We're talking about functional phrases and methods of communication. In the giraffe language, request, okay? Non-judgmental, gentle, non-attacking, okay? That's the way you want to be. Giraffe, okay? And the jackal. Demand, judging, criticism, analysis, okay? And accusation, okay? We're going to have a look at some examples, and you're going to be the one to judge, in this case, whether it's the giraffe language or the language of the jackal, okay? Let's decide. Here's what a jackal looks like in a giraffe, yeah, right? Okay, here we go. So we have A and B. Who would like to read something for us? Yeah, I think I need some water, so maybe someone else could read A and B for us. Yeah, you could help us out here. Anyone? Don't be shy now. You can help me. Okay. A and J. B and G. Oh,
I
oh,
can.
I see. Oh, yes, please read that for us. Thank you.
Giraffe or jackal? There are missing blanks in the form you turned in. Why did you do it in a rush? The second option, there are missing blanks in the form you turned in. What happened?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Yulia. Thank you so much. All right. So, oh, that's it. No worries. No worries, Anya. It's okay. Good stuff. So we have the answers. Ursula also. Okay. Very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, there are missing blanks, right? Yulia said. Why did you do it? In a rush. This is accusation. Okay. What happened? It's open-ended. It is open-ended. There are certain methods that what you can do to also avoid being like using that accusation style, right? Accusative style. I'll talk about that in a moment. Using indirect language, for instance. Okay, yeah, that's the one. Okay. All right, then. Good. We're gonna go on to the next one. Yeah. Who would like to read it? So many volunteers and so little time. Yeah. can read it for us. You know, I wouldn't like to like pick one by one, but I will. Okay. Please help us around here. Who would like to read for us?
I can read.
Thank you.
So I feel upset about the delay because I want to relax in the evening instead of working overtime again. And B, I feel upset about the delay because you are always missing deadlines.
Period. Sorry about the period. I lost it somewhere. The jackal ate it. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, who can tell us? Yeah. Okay. The giraffe is that's the one. Yeah. Talk about you and not talk about them. That's also like a little hint that I can give you in being very, very indirect. So if, for instance, if I say something along the lines of the following, okay. You should have, oh, what am I doing here? You should have sent us the report. Okay. Now, this is a typical like Jackal sentence. Even here, right? Here, we're still using I. But sometimes it's even worse. It's actually the accusation starting with you. But first step is to start with me. Okay, that's also part of like assertive English language. It's not only about being able to say no, it's also about the possibility to express your emotions, your feelings, and not accuse anyone of anything else. We're talking about business language as well, just be informed, right? Which it should be non-emotional, right? I see some of you here from like my plain language writing groups, yeah, so you know exactly what I mean. You can share some of those ideas in that chat box first, yeah. So for instance, I will start with, okay, it's going to be the same thing. Someone did not send the report. Okay, all right, I did not receive the report. Okay, that's step one. We can go further. We can go further than that. And the more advanced even version, which, by the way, if you are, small tip, if you're using any type of writing tools, right, to construct your communication, and I mean, hint, hint, AI, yeah, any tools, AI likes to implement active voice. This is clear. You did not send the report. Okay, I'll make it even simpler. You did not send the report, period. Full stop, yeah? Okay, I did not receive the report. I can go further. It was believed, okay, this is very formal, okay, that we were to receive the report. You know, it was believed that we should have, or we were to receive the report. So, ladies and gentlemen, the passive structure also could be very useful. So just be mindful if you're using any type of like, you know, writing aids, as they say, that might push you into certain structures. This knowledge you need to possess yourself, right? So that's what it is. Okay, we're gonna go on. Okay, any questions? All good in the hood? Yeah. Sound? Okay. We're gonna go on. Let me just erase it. Ready. Okay, more jackal and giraffe. Yeah. Here we go. Okay. Who would like to read it for us? Don't be shy now. Some of you told me at the very beginning some traits, like, and it sounded like you're able to, like, you're cooperative. You want to display your ideas. Well, here's your chance to do it. Right? Who would like to read it for us and help me out a bit?
Oh, I can read.
Hello, Paulina. Go ahead.
So you don't get the importance of this project, and your project is important to our success.
Paulina, which one is the giraffe or the jackal in your opinion?
Actually, it's Marta.
Oh, Marta. Oh yeah, my bad. Oh yeah, Marta. Marta, my bad. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, apologies. So Marta, which one is the jackal or the giraffe here?
I think giraffe, it's like
So the giraffe is the delicate one, yeah? It's not attacking. The jackal. Yeah, exactly. So B is that giraffe. Good one. Thank you. Thank you. Good one. Alrighty then, we're gonna go on. Thanks. To the next part. Okay. Okay. Phrases for observation. What's happening? You're describing the situation without any judgment. Okay. Of course, later as you get to know the team better, all right. But here, some very functional phrases for you that you can use for observation. Okay. I hear, I can see that. And then what? What I notice is that these are very neutral phrases. The ones that I showed before, right, were the ones that are not so clear. The ones that can have, like, the meaning can be twofold, can have, two meanings. All right. So phrases, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to just quickly. Yeah, I think I need to go on because we're running out of time a bit. Okay, and there's still plenty of things that I wanted to show you. But like I said, the agenda was not set in stone in any way. I wanted to work on adapt to any questions that you might have as well. Right. Okay, so we're gonna go on. So that one, identifying, expressing your feelings. Right. So you need to identify those feelings. What you feel, what's going on, why are you disappointed, what irritates you, the basic level, right? We talked about relationship-based cultures. You're not going to develop that relationship if you don't express your feelings, baby. Business is not meant to be emotional. On the other hand, you might tell me, right? So on the one hand, an email like on the low context profile should be short, direct, but on the other hand, you might need to express feelings if need be. Yeah. Okay. Needs. There's always a need for something. Why? Find a need. What you need. What counts for you? What's important for you? Okay. Also, another thing that you might want to consider. Think about the team that you're currently working in. Is it multinational, right? Did you have any situations in which you felt that the communication was different than you initially anticipated? Maybe that is one of the factors that we talked about at the beginning. Maybe just because I wrote a short email doesn't mean I want to be distant. No. Maybe, just because your colleague wrote a very long email, it doesn't mean that they're intrusive. That might be a cultural thing. We're going to carry on. Positive, doable requests. Doable. Okay. Use the common structures. I know that all of you, a very high level of English I heard today from everyone who spoke. Use the common structures. Would it be okay? Would it be possible? Would you be willing to, for instance? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I need to go on. We're going to go into the final phase of the meeting. Okay. I'd like to talk about some rough self-reflection questions for you. And at the end, we're going to talk about a competition. You can win prizes. You like prizes? Prizes are good. Prizes, right? Okay. So first question, who would like to answer? That's good. So many volunteers. That's what I need. Do you tend to share your feelings with the world or keep them to yourself? This is something I can tell you while you think about your answer. You can write your answer. You can speak as well. Would anyone like to share? If your answer is yes, then share right now. Right, if your answer is no, then I understand and you can write. Okay, Petra. Go ahead, Petra. How are you? Would you like to speak with us? Oh, I got you. Okay. Petra's on her way home. I understand. Okay. All right. So, oh, on the bus. I got you. Yeah. So thank you for staying with us, by the way. That competition, yeah. Everyone has a chance. Okay. Something I want to tell you about sharing your feelings with the world and keeping them to yourself. Oh, I have more. Oh, Paulina, can't keep my thoughts online for myself, so I probably always share, my opinion. Okay, that's good. All right, I can't speak, so I'll write, Philip. Okay, I try to express my feeling. If it's express those feelings. When I moved to Poland, by the way, before, by the way, because when I was growing up in the States, my parents signed me up to like Polish lessons every 2 weeks. I had to go to this little town with my, like there was a little Polish school. We learned history there as well, and a little bit about the culture. Yeah. And then when I moved to Poland, I had a very I imagined it in my mind how it would be, right, as well. So something about that. Okay, we're gonna go on, and then what I found out about the culture, it was also that there are differences in the way that we share feelings. Okay, we're running low on time, so I'm gonna ask you one more question, yeah, and then I'd like to go into the the last part. How does your culture affect how you behave? That's a hard question to ask and answer in a minute. Think about it this way. I'll ask you a difficult question. I have kids. I don't know if everyone has kids, but like for instance, what is important to you? What is important and what should we teach kids? Should we teach them obedience or should we teach them, for example, to be independent? Is these type of cultural questions that later impact communication and then whole societies, I believe. It's not all down to children. Okay, I understand. Okay, so that's why, okay, we're gonna go to the last part. I see that some are starting to drop off. I wouldn't like that to happen. So ladies and gentlemen, last part for you, it's a competition. You can drop us a review, basically, and I noted some prizes. I noted them somehow. And the prizes are impressive, ladies and gentlemen. A 6-week, are you gonna say vacation to Hawaii? No, 6-week Scrum Master course, ladies and gentlemen, worth over $5,000. Yeah. A 6-week business analyst course and a 4-week SQR course. I know I want one of those. I think I'm gonna start writing some reviews right now, actually.